We'll call this hearing to order. Representative Mostello, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good morning, afternoon at this point, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is David Rowe. I have the privilege of serving the 85th Legislative District in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives that covers Union, Snyder, Juniata, and Mifflin counties. I also have the honor of serving as the Pennsylvania House Republican Policy Committee Chairman, and I am very grateful to our host today, to the Crane Room, to Elwood for hosting us for a tour earlier before this. And we are just very grateful to be here for the opportunity to learn directly from the people who are the boots on the ground. What you share with us today is what allows us to go back to Harrisburg to craft policy and to really try to make a positive impact on the people who are the job creators, the cores of these communities that we have the privilege of serving. We're going to start off by having members introduce themselves. Representative Brown.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. My name is Representative Marla Brown, and I represent Lawrence County, which is where you're sitting. So welcome, and thank you for being here.
I am Marcy Mostello, and I represent parts of Butler County.
I'm State Representative Valerie Gatos. I represent the 44th Legislative District, Pittsburgh Airport area.
Hello, I'm Park Wentling, State Representative in the 7th Legislative District in Mercer County. Previously represented parts of Erie, Crawford, Mercer, and Lawrence counties.
Representative Josh Kale, Beaver, Washington counties.
Good afternoon, Jill Cooper. I represent House District 55, which is Westmoreland County.
I also want to mention that we do have Sam Weiland here from Senator McCormick's office. Thank you very much for being here with us today, Sam. So today's hearing is about something very fundamental to Pennsylvania's future, making sure we simply have the workforce needed to build, maintain, and power our economy. Across the Commonwealth, we've heard from multiple manufacturers who are simply sounding the alarm. Earlier this week, we had Manitowoc Cranes down in Franklin County. They are the last American crane manufacturer. They are ready to hire, they are ready to grow right here in Pennsylvania, but they simply cannot find the workers that they need to meet demand. One of our testifiers at that hearing noted that we are facing a silver tsunami. They've gotten very good at recruiting and retaining workers, but unfortunately not workers at the beginning of their careers, workers at the end of their careers. And yet across Pennsylvania, including in my district, career and technical education programs have waiting lists, and that bears repeating. We have jobs ready to fill, we have waiting lists in school districts, but there is a backlog, there is a bottleneck that is preventing us from being able to meet that demand. We are unable to make sure that we can create the workforce that is necessary to contribute to the local economy and continue to be part of the communities that make Pennsylvania such a wonderful place to call home. That disconnect really should concern us, and that's why we're here today, because the truth is workforce development in the skilled trades is not just an economic issue, it's an affordability issue. Because skilled trades jobs are jobs that offer family-sustaining wages without the burdens of excessive student debt. They are pathways to stability, to upward mobility, and to strong local economies. So we're here today specifically to hear directly from employers and workforce development leaders, because at the end of the day, if we want a more affordable Pennsylvania, we need a stronger workforce, and that starts with investing in the skilled trades. So with that, I would like to invite our host, Representative Marla Brown, to offer her opening remarks. Thank you for having us, Representative Brown.
Thank you. And again, thank you all for being here today. Thank you to the testifiers. Really excited to be able to host this policy hearing. And I was fortunate enough in working with Anna Behrensfeld, who is a constituent here, and we're very privileged to have Elwood Quality Steel in our district. But, you know, as the largest employer, one of the largest employers in our district, they're facing a huge crisis moving forward. And we want to be able to discuss and put together a plan moving forward for our state. You know, skilled trades are the backbone of our economy, and they support such industries as obviously manufacturing, construction, energy, and infrastructure. These careers provide family-sustaining wages and opportunities for advancement. But these industries, as the chairman just said, are facing severe workforce shortages. So I look forward to the testimony and, more importantly, opportunities for us to put together legislation that will help to improve this moving forward.
Thank you, Representative Brown. So we're honored to hear from two different panels of experts today. First, we're going to hear from employers who are ready to hire but struggling to find workers, and second, the educators and workforce leaders struggling to close that gap. So first of all, we have with us today, we have Anna Behrensfeld from Elwood Steel. Thank you very much for being with us today and for the tour you hosted us for earlier this morning. We have JD Longo from the America First Policy Institute. Thank you for being here. And we have Julie Michael Smith. She's the Coalition Manager for the Lawrence Mercer Manufacturers Coalition. I want to thank you all very much for being here today. We're going to start it off with you guys giving us 3 to 5 minutes of testimony, and then we're going to turn it over to questions from the members. Anna, you're up first.
Thank you. Is the audio is okay? Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Anna Behrensfeld, Vice President of Strategic Initiatives and board member of Elwood. I'm also president and co-founder of the Lawrence Mercer Manufacturers Coalition. Chair Rowe, Representative Brown, and members of the House Republican Policy Committee, thank you for the invitation to testify at the hearing. I appreciate the committee's commitment to listening directly to employers, educators, and workforce partners as you examine solutions to strengthen the skilled trades pipeline across the Commonwealth. I also want to thank Representative Brown for hosting this hearing and for her leadership in elevating the needs and opportunities of Western Pennsylvania's manufacturing community. My family has owned and operated Elwood since 1910. We are a vertically integrated supplier of specialty metals, forgings, and engineered components, serving defense, aero, space, energy, transportation, and other vital industries. We use our metallurgical expertise to meet mission-critical specifications. Success over more than 100 years demands stewardship mentality rather than a focus on quarterly results. We are fundamentally interested in the long-term success of our business, therefore the long-term health and vitality of the communities where we operate. We consistently reinvest in capital equipment necessary to manufacture our products, but we know that our team is our greatest asset. Our success depends on the skills and engagement of our workforce today and long into the future. Despite declining public awareness of manufacturing, it remains critical to national security and economic vitality, especially in Pennsylvania. At Elwood, manufacturing is more technologically complex than ever. A visitor walking through our shops would see heavy industrial activity, but might not appreciate the layers of technology embedded in our processes, from AI-based safety monitoring to sensor-driven data analysis of production parameters to automation and robotics. The workforce implications of these technologies are, frankly, staggering. The degreed component of this workforce is important, but the skilled tradespeople needed to operate and maintain this equipment is absolutely critical. Unfortunately, we no longer have an experienced regional manufacturing workforce to draw from. My perceptions of our regional workforce reality are as follows. Pennsylvania's manufacturing sector faces persistent workforce shortages, and skilled trades roles are among the hardest for employers like us to fill. Entry-level manufacturing positions lead to strong wages, comprehensive benefits, clear advancement pathways, and long-term stability. Today's trades are far more technology-driven than in the past, meaning they're both more attractive and more demanding. Higher education will always play a role, but non-degreed skilled trades provide an attractive pathway for young people better matched to hands-on careers. Trades programs require far less educational debt, offer hands-on learning, and graduate students with immediately employable skills. Co-ops and apprenticeships allow students to earn while they learn. Career and technical education consistently better prepares students for workforce participation than standard high school tracks. Despite these advantages, many young people and those who influence them still associate manufacturing with the industrial past rather than the modern technology-driven careers that are available today. But students graduating with manufacturing-related technical preparation are highly sought after by employers and very likely to find stable employment. We are seeing some encouraging trends. Some non-CTE high schools are adding manufacturing-related curriculum, and enrollment in CTE manufacturing programs is increasing. However, this progress needs to accelerate because the workforce challenge is acute. To put this into perspective, Elwood expects to hire more than 800 direct team members over the next 5 years in Western Pennsylvania and Eastern Ohio. That reflects higher turnover since COVID and the Great Retirement, or the Silver Wave, along with modest projected growth. That need is just for operational and maintenance positions with direct impact on production. I want to recognize that significant work is already being done by educators, policymakers, community organizations, trade groups, and manufacturers to address this challenge. Manufacturers understand that raising career awareness is critical, but it is difficult to reach a broad audience in today's crowded and fractured public messaging environment. The Lawrence Mercer Manufacturers Coalition is working on initiatives to raise awareness, but meaningful progress will require support from Harrisburg. Encouragingly, the state's implementation in 25-26 of updated K-12 standards integrating STEM disciplines with hands-on, career-aligned learning has already made a positive impact. But to close the gap between Pennsylvania's workforce needs and the number of individuals pursuing skilled industrial careers, we need the Commonwealth's help to shift the public perception of modern manufacturing through outreach and continued educational improvements. Manufacturing remains a viable, essential industry, and today's manufacturing careers are modern, rewarding, and accessible, but the message is not widely understood. The state can help us by elevating the visibility and appeal of skilled trades careers. Possible actions include supporting public awareness efforts, highlighting modern manufacturing, helping manufacturers reach key influencers in career decisions, educators, guidance counselors, coaches, and families, investing in statewide campaigns that celebrate local career success stories and show Pennsylvanians what it means to make real things in our communities, continuing to expand career-focused curriculum and technical learning requirements, and supporting sustained engagement between employers and schools so students see manufacturing as a future-focused career choice. Your committee's focus on workforce development in the skilled trades is both timely and essential. With strategic, employer-driven policy support, Pennsylvania can strengthen our manufacturing competitiveness, expand access to family-sustaining careers, and build a resilient talent pipeline for the next generation. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony and for your leadership in this critical area.
Thank you, Ann. And I think one of the points that you referenced very well was eliminating the stigmatization that's associated with trades, where for a CTE month, I'm sure all of us visited at least one of the trade schools in our area. I visited both of mine, and there are a few places that you can go where you see students that are so proud of what they're doing. They wanted to show me this thing that they built, this thing they invented, this project they came up with, and seeing the fulfillment that comes with that, and knowing that the day they leave, they're going to have 10 jobs to choose from. That's why we're doing this. We're trying to share that message to young people that, hey, you have a pathway to a family-sustaining career that doesn't require $100,000 and you will in debt, and you'll have a job offer tomorrow, the day after you graduate. So that's exactly why we're here today. Thank you so much. Mayor Longo.
Thank you. How's my audio there? Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished members of this committee, Chairman Rowe, Representative Brown. Thank you very much for taking the time to engage with us today and for the opportunity. It's a pleasure as the chairman of the America First Policy Institute's Pennsylvania chapter to present to you today the expert testimony of Dr. Christopher Schor, who's the director of the Higher Education Reform Initiative at the America First Policy Institute. The America First Policy Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit. We are a nonpartisan research institute, and our guiding principles are liberty, free enterprise, foreign policy, engagement in the American interest, freedom of conscience, and the primacy of American workers, families, and communities. And to this end, the America First Policy Institute affirms and celebrates the American experiment and works to promulgate American values in our educational institutions, public policy, and in culture. We are committed to policies that prioritize American workers, foster economic independence, and promote practical training pathways to high-paying jobs. Dr. Schor, as the director of the Higher Education Reform Initiative, oversees AFPI's post-secondary research portfolio, which includes workforce development. Prior to joining AFPI, Dr. Schor worked as a research analyst for the Defense Health Board, as a Department of Defense Federal Advisory Board member. And prior to that, he co-authored the book, Black Eye for America, How Critical Race Theory is Burning Down the House. He's written and has asked me to give to you today to register AFPI's support for the policies outlined in the Built in Pennsylvania initiative, focusing on workforce development in the skilled trades. And the skilled trades encompass construction, manufacturing, electrical work, plumbing, HVAC, and related industries, as you know. They are critical for infrastructure development, innovation, and self-reliance. And skilled trades build our nation's communities and support economic growth. In 2024, for example, Pennsylvania exports reached a record $53.2 billion. And in 2022, this state's exports sustained an estimated 157,000 jobs. Despite this, persistent challenges threaten the foundation of this important sector. Targeted reforms are needed to equip Pennsylvania's workers with the skills to promote economic prosperity for Pennsylvania industries and families. As for challenges and opportunities in Pennsylvania's skilled trades, Pennsylvania's economy relies heavily on skilled trades and on related industries like manufacturing and construction. And so, for instance, since 2023, investments in manufacturing training programs have helped train over 3,300 Pennsylvanians, creating pathways to rewarding careers. However, Pennsylvania faces a projected shortfall of more than 300,000 skilled trade workers by 2030, jeopardizing the state's infrastructure, healthcare, and manufacturing sectors. Nationally, open construction sector jobs recently averaged 300,000 to 400,000 monthly, with high demand for roles like carpenters, plumbers, and electricians. Annual wages for these positions are around $60,000 per year. In Pennsylvania, this demand aligns with broader trends where skilled trades offer competitive compensation and opportunities for self-employment. And for example, about 1 in 3 carpenters are self-employed. But critically, these jobs are also broadly resilient to automation. Recent projections indicate over 7.3 million hands-on positions in transportation, healthcare, and skilled trades will be available nationwide by 2034. And this includes projected open positions for 800,000 electricians, 400,000 HVAC technicians, and 456,000 welders. Now, despite the promise of the trades, unemployment systems have struggled with persistent backlogs, originating from pandemic-era disruptions, but persisting despite claims of progress. These delays leave workers without timely support and hinder their re-entry into the trades. Recent modernization attempts have been marred by errors, delays, and inefficiencies, wasting resources and failing to deliver reliable assistance. Broader policy missteps, including over-reliance on fragmented programs and insufficient focus on practical training, render skilled trades positions vulnerable to labor shortages in the face of the coming baby boomer retirement wave. The coming shortages threaten Pennsylvania's ability to meet industry demands and sustain growth. Without reform, businesses face reduced competitiveness and communities endure stalled infrastructure and understaffed essential services. Concerning practical solutions to empower Pennsylvania workers, to address these gaps, the America First Policy Institute advocates streamlining fragmented workforce programs to align with reindustrialization needs and optimizing federal and state investments for high-demand trades like those in manufacturing and in energy. This includes expanding registered apprenticeships to reach 1 million active apprentices annually, emphasizing on-the-job training over traditional pathways to quickly build skills and fill shortages. We additionally recommend the following: implementing skills-based hiring in public sector jobs that eliminates college degree barriers that may be present, providing training resources, partnering with employers to prioritize practical abilities, reducing unnecessary barriers for workers entering the trades wherever possible, destigmatizing vocational education through career and technical programs, protecting apprenticeships from burdensome regulations that inflate costs and limit competition, encouraging local hiring on public projects, and requiring at least half of the workers on major contracts to be Pennsylvania residents, with contributions to training funds if waivers are needed to keep jobs in Pennsylvania and bolster community economies. These measures, we believe, will enhance worker mobility, increase wages, and ensure Pennsylvania leads in building a resilient American-made future. And so in conclusion, by prioritizing American workers, or more specifically Pennsylvania's workers, through targeted, efficient workforce development, Pennsylvania can overcome current hurdles and harness the full potential of its skilled trade sector. AFPI urges the committee to advance policies that empower individuals, reducing government overreach, and driving economic strength from within the Commonwealth, and we stand ready to collaborate on these efforts to build a prosperous Pennsylvania for generations to come. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Smith.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. My name is Julie Michael Smith, and I do have the pleasure of serving as the coalition manager for the Lawrence Mercer Manufacturers Coalition. Thank you, Representative Rowe, Chairman, and your associates, and Representative Brown for hosting us here today to hear not just our concerns, but also our suggestions and ideas for proactive solutions to address some of these issues. The Lawrence Mercer Manufacturers Coalition, LMMC, was founded in 2024 with the leadership and the catalyzation by Anna Behrensfeld and the Elwood Group, along with other manufacturers here in the region. We have 6 founding members that are driving this industry partnership, which I'm sure many of you probably have in your own districts. These are organizations that are driven by industry, responding to industry, and the industry leaders set those priorities. The organization had been strongly advocated by our Workforce Development Board, the West Central Job Partnership, which is represented here today by their Administrative Director, Eric Harmacy. Our organization, in just a little over 2.5 short years, has grown to 31 members, half of which are manufacturers who are actively engaged in executing the vision and undertaking the hard work of the coalition. We've been successful in attracting over $1.2 million in federal and state support to advance our priorities and seek to implement tangible solutions to address the concerns we're speaking about this afternoon. Here in the region, manufacturing is this region's second larger employer. It employs almost 16% of the workforce with an average earnings of $69,000. This far exceeds the average annual earnings of the area, which is $53,000. Yet, with the shrinking population, the aging population, approximately 40% of this workforce is nearing retirement age. In addition, we have companies such as Elwood and Burner International and Firmapack, which, if you're familiar with that iconic Honey Bear bottle, that are expanding here in the region, in addition to those companies that are finding Western Pennsylvania as a great place to call home to establish their operations. We have the talent pool here. In this region, there's approximately 25,000 youth and young adults, ages 15 to 24. And as I suspect you'll hear from our educators on the next panel, up to 35% of them graduate from high school without a clear plan as to what they're going to be doing in their future. But I can tell you what I don't think they're going to be doing, and that's pursuing careers in manufacturing. When you talk to the young folks, they don't want to work in manufacturing, and in part, they simply don't understand what's involved in manufacturing, what today's manufacturing looks like. And it's not just them, it's those influencers that really help guide them along that important career exploration journey. They don't know that they can start at those wages that are $18 to $25 an hour, and that will allow them to advance. The story's there, they're just not hearing it. So our first statement or our first request is to invest in career awareness for all the influencers. It's not enough just to be able to communicate to those youth and young adults. It's important to change the messaging that they're hearing at home, that they're hearing when they're playing sports or they're involved in different activities, they're in after-school programs. And ways that we can help change that narrative is by investing in a manufacturing career awareness grant program, or providing support particularly to those regions that are underperforming economically, are in distressed areas, Appalachian areas, that really need to be able to shore up and stabilize their economies and their communities and prepare them for continued growth. Expand the eligibility for the existing PA SMART program to include career awareness. Create a manufacturing career ambassador program. We have manufacturers and other leaders who would like to speak to students, but sometimes there's a bit of threshold intimidation or they don't know what to say. If we can help equip them with those talking points and those experiences that help them connect with students, that makes a difference. I think everybody in this room can look back in their past and know that there was at least one person that really impacted their career journey and maybe sent them on a path that they had not even considered exploring. We need to prepare people to be that champion and that advocate for our students. And then to be able to provide regional funding, which I know we talk about competitiveness with Ohio, but we've also had great opportunities to collaborate with our adjoining state. They have established a program where they allocate a $10 per pupil in a region, provide that to a lead district like an intermediate unit to help craft career awareness and messaging that's very specific to their region, because a statewide message that resonates in Harrisburg or Philadelphia may not have the same resonance as it does here in our region. The second is, after you help change the narrative, is providing students and young adults with opportunities to have that work-based learning experience. Because you can talk the talk, but you need to walk the walk. You need to have the experience. When youth and young adults and career influencers even walk into a manufacturing plant today and they see the advanced technology, the robotics, logistics, the heavy industrial equipment, the machining, the PLCs, it helps change that narrative. So now what they've seen, they actually put into action, and giving them that work-based learning experience can really have an unimaginable impact. Specific recommendations for your consideration include a work-based learning wage credit for those employers who hire students and young adults, being able or creating a compliance guidance and providing that to employers. So many times, without fail, when I will talk about work-based learning experiences, I hear from employers, but we can't employ anybody under the age of 18. We've got insurance and BWC, and that's simply not the case. Yes, you're not going to have a 16-year-old drive a forklift. However, there are many jobs that youth and young adults, even under the age of 18, can effectively do in a manufacturing facility. Elwood has been a leader in offering these experiences to students as well as other progressive companies here in our community. And then from the student perspective, making sure that they enter into the workforce with those job-ready or durable skills. Timeliness, critical thinking, problem solving, being a team member. Those are important skills that when they step into the workplace, that they're able to demonstrate as well. So in closing, I think that we've all heard that we know that there is a generational change that we can talk about. I'm not sure what we call as generation now. I think we're still in the Generation Z. I'm an X. I think she's probably an M. We're all of these different. But it is, seriously, it's a long game. And so we need to start when students are open, informative, whether it's elementary school, middle school, high school. It's a progressive experience. It needs to be progressive, it needs to be structured, scaffolded, and you need to continue to add experiences. It's not a museum experience. You can't talk to students just once. We need to be able to offer consistent progressive experiences and help craft that messaging of those that are around them as they go. That work-based learning then converts that awareness into real activity. And this continuum of awareness, exploration, readiness, and entering the workforce is an important continuum to follow. You hear that our manufacturers are ready to grow. They're invested in the community. Elwood alone creating, projecting in the next 5 years, 800 new positions to be created. And that's really the tip of the iceberg for the possibilities, not only here in Western Pennsylvania, but throughout the Commonwealth. So closing that gap really is not just a workforce imperative, it's an economic imperative for the entire state, whether that's through the direct impact of our manufacturers as well as that indirect impact that resonates through our communities from the time we cash a paycheck to when we go out to dinner on Friday night for our fish dinner. I appreciate this opportunity for being able to share this information with you this afternoon and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. I think the closing remarks that you had in your written testimony, what you just summarized there, closing that gap is not a workforce imperative, it's an economic survival strategy. And I think that is perfectly summarized, because when we were down at Manitowoc Cranes, they were sharing with us how they had 500 positions to fill, couldn't fill them, so they had to outsource to other states where they could. So if we want to stem that loss, that exodus from Pennsylvania, it begins with creating that opportunity right here for young people. So thank you very much. We're going to turn it over to members for questions at this point. You guys are welcome to answer any question. You're not obligated to answer every question, but we're here to learn from you. So feel free to jump in, and we're going to start things off with Representative Brown.
Wow. So thank you all for first establishing the foundation, but also building the momentum for this very important initiative. I want to begin with J.D. Longo. You had mentioned that by 2030, I think, that we will be less 300,000 tradesmen. And I wonder if that even includes the trades needed for all these data centers that are coming to PA, because I can tell you that I met with one of the representatives from Steamfitters recently, and he said that they need triple of what they have right now for what the data centers are expecting to need to build in PA. But having said that, you mentioned that one of the things was burdensome costs of apprenticeship. And I know in our district here, we have some great apprentice programs, but I'm not aware of the burdens that you highlight. Could you tell me what those are?
Sure, I'm glad to. Thank you very much for, again, the opportunity to address you here today. And while I don't want to speak in this moment on behalf of Dr. Christopher Shore, I can tell you that the America First Policy Institute and the Pennsylvania chapter have addressed a number of burdens across the Commonwealth that have created barriers for us to meet the demands, specifically in career and technical education, and especially as they relate to the demands for AI and data centers, and as we continue in that discussion. You know, we spoke recently, actually, you and I remember about instances where you have some difficulties in getting folks through apprenticeship programs. One of the things that we've talked about at the AFPI is, first and foremost, getting individuals started at an earlier age and not waiting for them to enter into, say, VOTEC. Now, I know, and the AFPI Pennsylvania chapter know, that we have some great programs here in the Commonwealth. We have some great champions. You're about to hear from one, Mr. Len Rich, here in just a moment, who have helped to create a bench for a foundation upon which this labor demand may be achieved. But however, if we believe that if we're not setting up success for individuals at younger ages to get involved in the trades, while actively acting against the stigma that surround the trades often, in addition to, unfortunately, some of the instances that are regulatory in that they keep apprenticeships from occurring, perhaps outside of specific instances. And really that's what we and Dr. Shore in this instance are trying to point to. And so we believe that there could be more flexibility, of course, whenever it comes to allowing for apprenticeships to be active and for participants to find them.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, Representative Brown, speak to the question from the perspective of a manufacturer. It's a good question that you ask, and as a manufacturer, when I first became more involved in our workforce development efforts at Elwood, I often felt that apprenticeships were a wonderful opportunity and that we should do more of them at Elwood. And we do have some apprenticeship programs at our various facilities, but I find that the administrative and staffing requirements imposed as part of a state approved apprenticeship program can be challenging for us as manufacturers. Generally speaking, I mean, we need all of the above to solve this workforce development challenge, and so apprenticeships are absolutely a part of that. And at some of our business at some of our Elwood businesses and in certain of our skill sets, for example, pattern makers at our iron casting facility in Hubbard, the apprenticeship program works very well. But by and large, employers today prefer the freedom to train in our own way without the reporting requirements, the paperwork, the requirement to have a certain trainer to trainee ratio. I mean, the time taken to sit through specific trainings required to meet the apprenticeship requirements. I mean, frankly speaking, we need freedom as employers to train in our own way, and each employer is different. So for me, I find that the biggest opportunity is in the awareness side of the equation. We need help ensuring that young people today are aware of the career opportunities. And we, as employers, we're pretty good at figuring out what training we need to give these folks. And frankly speaking, we usually would even prefer to pay for trainees' wages or pay for training because it doesn't come with requirements of reporting and so on. But what we need is help raising the awareness of these opportunities, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
Thank
you.
Representative Kale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, panel, for being here today. This hearing is very timely for me in particular. I had a town hall last night, and this issue actually came up in particular, manufacturing jobs and jobs of the future for our kids. And I understand that there is a lot of confusion, I'll say. And I think one of the problems, and I said this last night, that we have is really dealing with people like me, because I am a parent. And it's helping parents understand that there is this future there. And, you know, I live in Beaver County. That's where I'm from. That's where my district is, covers Washington County as well. And the skepticism or the concern around manufacturing, I understand it, right? Because when I was born, the unemployment rate in Beaver County was 26%. There was high demand for manufacturing jobs when my dad was coming out of high school, and that demand dropped significantly. I guess, what can we tell to assure our constituents that there is real resilience to this demand for these types of jobs, that these jobs aren't going to be going away in the next 5 years with the advent of artificial intelligence, that these jobs aren't going to be offshored? How can we be certain as we can be? Obviously, nothing is for sure, but how can we be certain that this demand will be resilient?
At risk of taking all the panel's time to answer the questions, I love this question and I love the opportunity to answer. I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Thanks for the question, Representative Kale. I think that we have a unique opportunity now that AI is so much in the public perception, or so much in the public awareness right now. Frankly speaking, anybody, from my perspective, my understanding, anybody with a college degree should be worried. The future belongs to the people that can make real things, and we do that through manufacturing. You cannot offshore melting steel. I mean, you can, but when it comes time to build a submarine, we sure hope we have that opportunity, or that expertise here in the United States. We have to continue to have that opportunity, and we make those parts here in Lawrence County. The people that know how to build submarines and all the parts and the materials that go into them are the people that own the future. And that's manufacturing. And so we have to help kids and their parents and their coaches and their career counselors and their influencers understand that that's where the opportunity is. And that was a much different message to tell 2 years ago. But now that AI is such a presence in the conversation, I think we really need to help people understand that the math has flipped. The value of a skilled trades career and education is enormous in the future, whereas unfortunately AI is coming to eat anybody's lunch who is doing office work or knowledge work. My perspective.
And if I might add, is that, yes, it will change. Manufacturing has changed immensely in the over 100 years that Elwood has been in operation. We see it today if you go into manufacturing and you think about how it was maybe 20 or 30 years ago when people were moving boxes manually, and now you have robotics. And has it displaced some jobs? Absolutely. What has happened in return, however, is that it's opened up more high-value jobs for individuals to advance to that can now run different types of machines or be team leaders or use PLCs or robotics or other types of technologies. The one thing that's always constant in any of our disciplines is change, and there will be changes, but I see that that's an advancement for the future, and it's certainly not one that we should dissuade our children from pursuing.
Representative, allow me to add too, as you heard in our expert testimony here, that it's projected that by 2034, we'll see 1.7 to 1.8 million of these jobs, including in welding, HVAC tech, and electrician work that are broadly insulated from being attacked by automation. It will be very difficult, of course, for AI to take over those very skilled and very personal trades, and I think that that's a really important distinction that needs to be made here when we're talking about AI and automation stepping in.
And as a father of a few kids, it's music to my ears that maybe not all of them have to go to college, right? And I certainly have a couple of children that are very good with their hands and are capable, and we're looking to direct them there. And I will say, in Western Pennsylvania, we have such a tradition of building things. When Shell came to my district, people were very excited, and they're still excited about the opportunity to produce something, to build something, to grow with something. If I may have just a short follow-up. We talk about this demand. Mayor Longo, you talked about it. Both of you have talked about it as well. I'm curious, from a policy standpoint, what's the biggest threat to that demand? Would it be energy policy? Would it be the workforce crisis in general? What are some of the threats that we can be looking out for and make sure that we can alleviate those now? Manufacturing demand. When I say demand, I mean manufacturing demand.
Well, you mentioned, you first asked the question, I think, in relation to creation of jobs and the future of manufacturing. You mentioned just at the end there, manufacturing demand. I think the demand will always be there because the AI will have a role, technology has a role, but you still have to manufacture the plane, you still have to manufacture the semiconductors and so on. So we'll have the demand, but in terms of a risk to the manufacturing sector and future growth, I do think that workforce is the biggest challenge. I think that we are resilient as an industry. And I mean, if you look at Elwood, just speaking from Elwood's experience, the products that we made in 85, in 95, and 2005, 2015, and 2025, very different every 10 years. Different sectors, different products, but we're constantly innovating, constantly improving, changing what we need to do to meet our customers' demands, and frankly, to stay ahead of offshore competition. And moving up the technical curve to make more and more challenging materials, more and more complex engineering. And I think that my fellow manufacturers in Pennsylvania are similar. And so we will always innovate to make what's needed. But if we don't have the workforce, I am very concerned about that. The heart of our operations are here in Western Pennsylvania, and I don't know where we're going to get the people next year, let alone 25, 50, 100 years from now, and I want to continue to manufacture in Western PA 100 years from now.
Allow me to add, too, that from a policy standpoint, and Representative Brown, you opened the door to this. You talked about, or alluded to, rather, the burdensome regulation that sometimes exists in this instance. I will say, and AFPI is a believer that overregulation, of course, is standing in the way of allowing for us to really tap into the full potential of Pennsylvania's workforce. Unfortunately, you have institutions and organizations from time to time who like to try to capitalize or hold monopoly over the mechanisms through which apprentices and skilled laborers are produced, and therefore it creates very thin and narrow pipelines sometimes for our talented partners in manufacturing and et cetera to produce those laborers on pace with the demand. And so overregulation, of course, is always a concern for ours. So lessening those burdens wherever we can, again, is something that the America First Policy Institute stands ready to help educate the public on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Gatos.
Thank you, Chairman Rowe, and thank you, Representative Brown, for bringing this topic to attention here. I think it's absolutely essential, and the skilled trades are not going away. And thank you, Anna, for pointing that out. Is that we still need people to actually functionally do the work, and that and I'm on the Communications and Technology Committee, and we've addressed the issues of AI, and people talk about replacing workers with AI, and it is indeed going to be those middle managers that have the knowledge workers. But I spent some time with the Pennsylvania School Boards Association, went to Germany, looking at the German models where they get kids in early into the trades, and they introduce them early. I found that with our school districts, and to Representative Kale's point, that it's educating the parents to make sure that it is really open in the schools. We are beginning to see the schools opening up more and more. My question to you is, do you do anything like field trips and to bring people, like have kids come into the manufacturing, have them touch, feel, and participate, and then how often can you do that? Because to your point, Anna, going on a field trip and seeing it as a museum and saying, hey, look, this is how they make steel. But, what are we doing, and what do you think would get these kids actively involved with their hands-on at a very early age, very much like they do in Germany? And in fact, what we saw was that the Mercedes-Benz factory has apprenticeships as early as age 16, where kids get up and they travel 100 miles away from home, get an apartment, and then do these apprenticeships. What do you see as an answer that would try to create that kind of atmosphere?
I would say that is really we have two priorities identified by our manufacturers, and manufacturing career awareness is top of mind. And in fact, in addition to Anna being the president of the board for our coalition, she also chairs our manufacturing career awareness committee. And we do attack it from a number of experiences. And starting in middle school, elementary school, middle school, we have reintroduced the What's So Cool About Manufacturing video competition. It had been dormant here, but with the assistance of the coalition, we were able to reinvigorate that. We are in the process of introducing a manufacturing simulation game for high school students. We have worked with Forward Lawrence, our state-designated economic development agency, and Penn College Technology. We helped assist growing a pre-apprenticeship program, so it is a pre-apprenticeship program that is used in the high schools. From 12 students just 3 years ago to this year, we have 54 students enrolled in this program, some of whom graduate or even continue on because they were rising seniors and are working in manufacturing. We participate in Manufacturing Day. We're exploring establishing a manufacturer corner at libraries. We're engaged in after-school activities with our United Way. We participate and help coordinate field trips. We have speakers coming into the classroom, as well as when students attend these different field trips. So we are, this is an all-hands-on, multifaceted attempt to help change the narrative around manufacturing, but also providing, I mean, we have a whole portfolio, an array of different activities for students. It can be something as simple as giving students tape measures, and you'd be amazed at how excited kids are to run around and measure things.
So right now, the age is 18. And I know, Anna, you had mentioned that you can certainly get these apprentices in at an earlier age, but they also have to finish their high school degree. Do you think that lowering the minimum age group from 18 to maybe 17, even 16, would maybe motivate these kids at an early age to say, hey, you know what? These last couple years in high school, which they somewhat fritter away, they don't know really what they want to do. They're pushed going into college, and I know when I had a conversation with the electrical workers, they said that their average age of people who start getting into the trades, they're 28 and 29 because they're being pushed into going to college or even community college for things that they spent a year or 2 or 3 doing, and then they realize, wait a minute, I really should go into the trades. That's 5-6 years of a person's life that they're not earning an income, starting their family, they've got debt from schools. Would you think lowering the age to 17, even 16, like they do in these other countries, would help?
I think it's a multifaceted challenge. I would classify Elwood, I'm speaking from my perspective as Elwood, and we are what I would call a heavy manufacturer. It is a dangerous work environment, especially if you're not familiar with working with heavy equipment. And that's one of our challenges, because you can't just take somebody off the street and they can't be productive right away. A young person, younger than 18, we have found ways to bring them into the workplace and introduce them to manufacturing, because we know how critical it is to get them familiar with what we're doing, to hook them young. And they respond to that, and they're interested in continuing. But those opportunities are limited because there is an element of, they need the judgment and the critical thinking to work safely in our environment. And they also need the maturity to work productively, show up on time, communicate effectively, conflict resolution, like I said, critical thinking, the safety element of the position. So I think that going much younger than 18 would be a challenge, but I think that it's a good thing a good idea that you bring up about modeling after the German apprenticeship program. And what is so effective about the German approach is that it is societal, and the kids have to choose their track. I can't remember exactly when, but I believe it's at the the time of high school. They decide when they enter high school, are they going to do the trade track?
It's actually middle school. I think it's like what we would be the equivalent of like 7th or 8th grade.
So at that point, they decide, am I going to the trade track or am I going to the collegiate track? And then if they're going into the trade track, they're supported with all of the resources and the education that they need to be successful. So, I mean, that would be a dream if we had that in the United States, and I think that's a wonderful model. It, of course, requires a whole shift of society. I wanted to just briefly touch on how Julie answered the opportunities for employers to show what we do to kids. I hesitate to be too frank, but we are exhausted as manufacturers. And we are doing so much career development and workforce development and school visits and hosting tours and engineering day and manufacturing day. And I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And we want to make sure that it's not just people like me who are visiting schools, it's the people that are actually doing the work, and the young folks, the electricians who are driving $75,000 trucks. I mean, those kids want to see that. And so when we pull those folks out of production and get them involved, I mean, it's very challenging. And so we're doing those things, and we know we need to do those things, but we need help. We're exhausted, and we need help.
Thank you.
Representative Mostello.
May I add to this, Representative? I'm so sorry. I just think it's so important that we don't, or we try to get away from underestimating some of the younger individuals who live amongst us. And I'll speak anecdotally here for just a moment. I was at Marine Corps recruit training at Parris Island, South Carolina for a full month before I turned 18. During that time, we were learning all sorts of valuable trades. Now, I enlisted as an infantry rifleman, but there were plenty of other individuals there under 18 who had enlisted to learn some valuable trades in supply and logistics, in HVAC technician, electrical work, welding, you name it. There were young American men and women who were standing ready to perform those functions. And I think that all of us can agree that while certainly the military is important for our national security, we can also agree that building a bench so that we have the infrastructure upon which we can build and maintain these things that we're talking about now is just as important to our national security. And in that regard, those who are 16 or 17 may very well be an untapped resource for the Commonwealth that we could see succeed.
I absolutely agree. In fact, I look at my uncle was drafted into World War II. I think when they cleaned out the high schools for D-Day, he was 16. Wow.
Now, Representative Mostello.
All right, sorry about that. I'm glad you brought up about Germany. I lived over there for a year when it was still West Germany, and I had the opportunity to go to high school over there. And that is exactly what they did. Once you hit, I think it was 7th grade, that you could choose one of the 3 schools that, you could attend, one that would take you on the path to university, one on the pathway to trades. It's something we have to look at. I think that might be a question for the second panel, but also with the first panel. And Anna, I should have asked you this when we were touring your facility, and thank you for having us. The automation that we saw, we didn't see very many people running around, in a steel mill that you would think is running around. So you have a lot of automation going on there. And I happen to notice a couple of the larger machines were not built in America. How do you fix them when they go down? How do you repair them when they need repaired? How do they maintain them? Do you have, and I'm sure this would go back to the skills again, but do you have to have somebody come from overseas to fix those machines when they go down?
It's a wonderful question, and frankly speaking, it was a bit of a strange message because we showed you a piece of Elwood that is highly automated and requires very few production operators. On the other hand, it requires a lot of industrial maintenance, talent, and experience. But those folks we don't see on the shop floor. So it has shifted when we. If I back up for a second, Elwood is a very diverse manufacturer, and so many of you have toured our steelmaking operations here in Newcastle. It's a much more traditional-looking environment. At the same time, a traditional-looking industrial environment, I should say. At the same time, under the hood, there's an enormous amount, and I've detailed this in my written testimony, enormous amount of technology underlying the process that you don't see when you're touring the shop. But that sort of more traditional heavy industry requires a lot more hands-on talent still. And that actually is our largest, that shop is our largest workforce challenge. So bringing the folks in to do the hard, honest to goodness, the hard labor that still needs to be done, it's a big challenge. But the industrial maintenance challenge is our biggest challenge across Elwood, and I would say all manufacturers in Western Pennsylvania. It's even when things are automated, even when we have robotics, the programming, the engineering, the programming, the operations, the repair, the maintenance, all require a skill set that's not very common today. So it's understanding how the equipment works. So you have to have the hands-on skills, but you also have to have the electronic skills, the electrical skills, the programming skills. So that's a very rarefied talent, and all manufacturers need more of that. And you were perceptive in recognizing that the manufacturer of the equipment, and I actually mentioned to one of the representatives on the tour that all of that equipment is made in Germany, Italy, and Austria. We don't have those types of technology and very commercially viable technology in the U.S. right now for that niche. Of course, there is much manufacturing technology in the U.S. that is effective, but in that niche, the Europeans are very strong. And when that equipment goes down, we do have to get them on the phone, and they're remoting in digitally to the equipment to work alongside our technicians, so it's in partnership. if we had that expertise in-house, we would certainly love to be able to repair the equipment on our own. I hope someday we'll have that, but we don't yet. But it is absolutely a challenge, and that challenge is going to be multiplying across Pennsylvania and the United States as we get more and more high-tech equipment.
Right. And as far as the Lawrence Mercer Manufacturers Coalition, we talk a lot about manufacturing like we're doing today, but also taking a step back in building those machines. So are you working on any robotics programs in the schools? I mean, I know you're going into the schools to talk about how cool manufacturing is and what you can do, but the actual building with students, and again, this might be for the second panel, and I apologize, I don't mean to put any of you on the spot, but if it's something that you're working on with this consortium that you've started in having them build something, have it like they used to do, like we heard on the tour with Representative Wentling, that they used to do in schools, where they used to have shop classes, where they would build something. But if this is a program, if this is a coalition that does that, I think that's a wonderful thing.
We do indeed, and a prime example of that is last summer we co-developed a summer camp and for middle school students. Actually, we started with high school students, and it was so successful that we ran it again in August for middle school students. And it included a robotics experience for the students, so they were able to build a robot, program a robot, and see how that was used. They had an experience with 3D printing, and then they immersed themselves on 3 tours of local manufacturers, so they could see how these advanced technologies that they were doing activities with were then actually used in manufacturing applications. So it's absolutely integrated into the learning experience.
Representative Wentling.
Yes, I have more of a comment than necessarily a question. I just want to mention the fact that I serve as a co-chair of the Manufacturing Caucus along with Marcy Mostello here and 2 other House members, Mike Schlossberg and Pat Harkins up in Erie. And we've done quite a few tours here in Northwest Pennsylvania. We'd love to partner with you in any way we can, kind of moving forward. I am glad you mentioned what's cool about manufacturing. So I believe that's a program it's been supported by the IRCs across the state. And I know that's one of the organizations that we fund through the state, at least in part, and also the federal government. So we are working to fund those kind of programs to for that kind of outreach and the final thing I'll say is that I know that the Manufacturing Caucus in the past has had upwards of 100+ members when Eli Ivankovich had it out of Westmoreland County when he was a rep, and I know that was through the partnership with the IRC. So I just want to mention that, and thank you very much for being here today.
I will say that I am very pleased that we were able to bring back the What's So Cool About Manufacturing, because our IRCs were in an odd area. We're covered by 2 IRCs, and so we're actually managing that program as a coalition along with our economic development partners rather than the IRCs.
I have one very brief question myself, and I'm going to ask for it to be a lightning round answer because we got to get to our next panel here. But looking at, Anna, your graphic regarding the population change from July 23 to July 24, and how obviously we're a net loser in this region at this point. I understand we have the pipeline issue, we have the workforce shortages, but not just the education pipeline. What are we struggling with as far as other competing states, other competing industries, other competing businesses? Are we losing these jobs to Ohio? I mean, obviously, right, we're losing people to Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, Texas. Anecdotally, from within your business, are you seeing that where you have employees that are saying, I'm going to go to Ohio, it's cheaper, or Florida doesn't have an income tax, I'm heading there instead? Are you seeing that? Are you seeing that you're competing against other states versus just a lack of workforce? And I don't know, JD, from the national perspective, if you have, this state's killing it, this is why Pennsylvania is losing. And again, short and sweet if we could.
Please, by all means, lead. Thank you.
We don't see, once we find that once team members come to Elwood, and if we keep them past the churn period of the first year, that is very common since COVID, that churn and turnover, we find that once they come, we can keep them. But of course, we need Pennsylvania to continue to be an easy to do business state. with less regulation and Ohio does have strong manufacturing. Eastern Ohio has strong manufacturing industry, and it is very attractive. But if we continue to raise the awareness of careers here in Western Pennsylvania, I think we have a good shot.
On a national perspective, I will bring you an anecdote from somebody who's very close to home. You can take a look at a business like Deep Well Services that's stationed just here in Zelienople, and they have had to, because of overregulation regarding energy production and energy exploration in the Commonwealth, unfortunately had to broaden their horizons to help insulate themselves against a lot of that uncertainty. And so therefore, you see them taking on a lot of jobs outside of the Commonwealth, in the Dakotas and in Texas specifically, from my recollection with my conversation with their vice president. And that is a great indicator of one of those instances where, yes, we are losing opportunities to put Pennsylvanians to work.
Well, I want to thank you all very much. It's been extraordinarily educational for the members. I want to thank you for your time, and thank you for hosting us today. It's been wonderful to have you guys. I'm going to call up our second panel now. I'm going to bring up Brendan Hathaway. He is a high school principal at the Wilmington Area School District. Dr. Joe McCormick, who is the superintendent at the Shenango School District, and Leonard Rich, who is the superintendent for the Laurel School District. He is also the director of the Lawrence County Career and Technical Center, a very timely position for what we've been talking about today. Mr. Hathaway, we'll start with you.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Brendan Hathaway. I'm the principal of Wilmington Area Junior Senior High School, and I'm honored to be here today to share how our district is fundamentally reimagining the way we educate our students to address a critical national priority, the next generation agriculture and manufacturing workforce. Wilmington Area School District has a unique opportunity to highlight Pennsylvania's commitment to preserving ag lands by farming an adjacent 102-acre parcel that was accepted into the Pennsylvania Farmland Preservation Program in December of 2024. The Lawrence County Ag Preservation Board has stated that the district's commitment to expanding ag education experience for students aligns directly with their mission to ensure that farmland remains a vital part of Lawrence County for generations to come, and offers valuable workforce development opportunities in high-demand careers such as agriculture, life sciences, robotics, and manufacturing, all which contribute to Pennsylvania's economic priorities. We are not just teaching students how to farm. We are building a functional pipeline of highly skilled leaders trained in the exact competencies required by modern industry. The district's farm's entrepreneurial focus will also teach students business operations, marketing, and sales, fostering an entrepreneurial way of thinking, and strengthening the local economy. In the past year, we have expanded our career and technical education capacity by adding 3 agriculture teachers and seeking state-approved programs in environmental management and food products processing, which have already resulted in an increase of out-of-district students transferring to our school to access these unique opportunities. However, we still work closely with Lawrence County Career and Technical Center. This year alone, 11 10th graders from Wilmington enrolled in LCCTC to gain valuable hands-on training in programs that Mr. Rich has overseen for many years. All 11 of those students took classes in our ag program their 9th grade year that provide an introduction to their chosen pathway at the Career Center, introducing students to vet sciences, welding, construction, electric, and small gas engines. We believe this introduction serves as a catalyst for students to pursue a more focused pathway at the Career Center. Our goal is to provide our students with multiple pathways to gain the vocational skills they need to succeed in today's modern workforce. Our vision employs a carefully scaffolded approach to STEM with students in grades K through 12, gaining hands-on experiences with environmental controls, robotics, and commercial-grade infrastructure. Kindergartners are able to work with robotics and vertical aquaponics units. Middle school curriculum includes STEELS elective in grades 5 through 8, in classes such as conservation, 7, and robotics and agriculture in 8th grade. High schoolers in biology classes manage aquaculture and nutrient production labs, learn to operate CNC machines and engineering courses, and are currently able to earn their FAA Part 107 commercial drone pilot licenses through a first-of-its-kind partnership with Patan and the Department of Agriculture. Our program bridges the gap between traditional agriculture and the cutting-edge technology, building high-demand skills for modern commerce and precision agriculture. These are the foundational skills employers across western Pennsylvania and eastern Ohio are struggling to find in entry-level workers. Our program also fosters opportunities for students to pursue post-secondary education opportunities in ag, life sciences, robotics, technology, manufacturing, and energy. A focus on the state's top 5 economic priorities encourages students to pursue careers in these growing fields. We are proud of the fact that last year our valedictorian, Jenna Whiting, is now pursuing a degree at Penn State in meat sciences, with the goal to return to our community to grow her family's business, Whiting Family Foods. Our graduates are mechanical engineers with Expand Energy, doctors of veterinary medicine in New Wilmington, researchers with the USDA, and part of research teams at Cornell University advancing food preservation techniques. Having our CTE programs integrated within the school day allows students to go from third period advanced manufacturing to advanced placement calculus fourth period. Our advanced scientific research class 8th period is not part of our CTE, but students recently conducted research on topics such as hydroponic-based biofiltration using diverse growth media for integrated management of agriculture runoff. Our students presented their findings at Westminster College's Environmental Symposium in December, and their work has been featured in NPR and Farm and Dairy. Finally, we are collaborating with Slippery Rock University to develop a life skills transition program where students with special needs can participate in community-based instruction on the district farm. The program aims to support the APR initiative to attract, prepare, and retain special education teachers. This partnership will provide opportunities for students in workplace readiness, independent living, and social interaction skills to prepare them for their transition from high school. This initiative also will give future special education teachers an opportunity to engage in their own vocational training. Furthermore, our program is a model of fiscal stewardship and community impact. Over the past year, we've secured over $186,000 in competitive grants to build community safety net where student-grown produce moves directly to the tables of local families in need through Mercer County Food Bank. Next year, increased production with newly installed high-tunnel greenhouse and increased traditional farming will put fresh produce into our district's cafeterias. By investing in this workforce-aligned infrastructure, we're doing more than teaching. We're strengthening the agriculture and food production pipeline in our region. We're supporting skilled trades in construction, mechanical systems, and environmental controls. And most importantly, creating local career pathways that reduce youth outmigration from our rural communities. We have the land, the faculty, and the strategic partnerships, ranging from industry leaders like Elwood, where we are placing our CTE students into valuable cooperative internships, to academic institutions like Westminster College, where our students are able to enroll in dual enrollment classes, to catalyze regional economic growth. However, the necessary resources to expose students to cutting-edge technology in agriculture and manufacturing is cost prohibitive. Rural districts like Wilmington, where 40% of students qualify for free and reduced price meals, face capital constraints that prevent investment in high-cost infrastructure, such as commercial-grade aquaponic systems, environmental control technology, automation equipment, commercial drone systems, and advanced manufacturing technologies. With your support, we can continue to confront the workforce opportunity gap and ensure that Pennsylvania remains a leader in agriculture and manufacturing innovation for generations to come. I appreciate the opportunity to present in front of this committee. Thank you for your time and your support of our students and their futures. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hathaway. Dr. McCormick.
Thank you. That might be better. Again, like everybody else, I appreciate the opportunity, and I also just wanted to thank you for the work you do. I know you get pulled in a lot of directions, and I sit in educational circles, and then I sit in workforce development circles, and I think that your circles are probably tenfold that, and all of your constituents. I know as a superintendent, we always say every individual in our organization's emergency is supposed to be my biggest priority, and it feels like that's on a much greater scale. So I just want to thank you for the work you're doing and all the advocating and time you spend across the Commonwealth. My perspective, and I provided some written testimony, and I ended up just kind of going with a couple bullet points so you don't have to read my dissertation. I guess my perspective comes from a couple decades in education, but probably more importantly than my work in education and as a superintendent and a school counselor, my graduate research, my dissertation spent a lot of years studying the pathways of students from their education through their careers and kind of the influence of secondary institutions and what K-12 does that helps guide and direct students and what success and what failures they find in the workforce afterwards. I feel like it's a really important part of what we do as a middle ground in there and how we influence and shape students and their career outcomes and in workforce development. And I'll put the caveat in there of I'm a doctorate with an educational background in research and career pathways, but I'm a farm kid, and I grew up with like I don't know what to call them, a farmer, a steel worker who maybe when those jobs were shifting and shut down became a full-time farmer. So it's a weird perspective. I don't know why that matters, so I'll move on. I see our K-12 schools, and I'll speak specifically for Shenango, my district, but also the county schools as well, of having two really successful or distinct and robust pipelines. I see 15-ish% of our students, and we've already addressed this a little bit. I see 15% of our students going on a CTE, on a career and technical education pathway, and I think it's a really valuable pathway. I'm a big advocate of that. I appreciate greatly what they do in the work of our CTCs. Extremely important. At Shenango, it's 17.3% of our students go the career technical pathway, and I think it's a valuable pathway. I think it gives them skilled trades to make them employable and an important part of our economy and for Anna to hire. On the other end, or on the opposite side of that scale, I see about 60% of our students pursuing four-year college degrees, bachelor's degrees, continuing their education beyond high school, and there's a lot of associate degrees in there as well. Also, I don't want to devalue that. I know we need the engineers, we need the doctors, we need all those professional degrees to have a healthy society as well. The misalignment, and you're probably well aware of this, and I hate to point out things that you already know, but when we look at that chart of 60% of the kids going for a bachelor's degree and 15% of the kids going into the skilled trades, and then that large group, the third of our students, the half of our students that are somewhere in between those two, and then we look at the economy and the workforce demands and what we need as a society, it's the exact opposite. It's misaligned. We're sending 60% of our kids for 30% of the jobs, and you probably know this. And we're sending 15% of our kids for 60% of the jobs. So it doesn't come as a huge shock to me when I sit and I collaborate with Anna and Julie and a lot of other industry partners that they're struggling with that, because the pipeline that we have in Pennsylvania, and we can point that finger at a lot of people, is sending a really high population to four-year colleges, a load of skilled trades. And I try to break those in. I like to keep things simple. I don't like that they're called professional degrees. I'll call them four-year bachelor degrees, or 4 years or more. But we have unskilled, skilled in those four-year degrees, and our pipelines are misaligned. Shenango is a microcosm of that. Lawrence County schools are like that, and so are all the school districts in your regions as well. It's pretty consistent across the state. So I look at that divide, and I want to know what's missing. And I think CTCs are part of the solution. I think they're doing a great job. I think our enrollment is up. I think that narrative, I think the way we talk about it, I think the way the schools and our parents see them has shifted drastically. I think it's different from 10 years ago in the heart of my research. I think it was different from 30 years ago when I was making these decisions coming out of high school. And I feel like that rhetoric has changed, and I think it's in a lot better place, largely to your credit and to CTC's credit and to manufacturers' credit. I still see a gap in that pipeline of how we support students. I had a little bit of an epiphany a couple months ago, and a few of these people already had to hear that. I got two forms of communication back to back. I heard from our local community college about the upcoming dual enrollment things, and we kind of rewrote that, we restructured that so it better met the needs of our high school students. So I got the revised dual enrollment program for our kids who want to continue their education after high school. And on the same day, I got communication from LMMC, from the Manufacturers Coalition, about their manufacturer readiness pre-apprenticeship program, a boot camp that they're rolling out. And it could have been more clear to me of, we don't have to reinvent a lot of the foundation work is there. You don't have to create this wheel. The Manufacturing Coalition has good programming right now that is designed for a workforce to upscale them, to give them more skills, and to bring them into their workforce. And dual enrollment style programs are designed to meet the needs of high school students. It's on their schedule, it's on their time, it's working with us so I can get kids college credits while they're still in high school. And to Representative Gatos' comments earlier, a lot of that is there. I think we can make a lot better use of the junior, senior year. I struggle. My personal opinion is I think it's a lot as a middle school student in Germany or as a ninth grader at Shenango School District to make the full-time commitment to go to CTC and continue their education and get a CTE education as a 10th, 11th, and 12th grader with Len. I know the students that will choose that track are going to be well-served and employable afterwards, but there's a gap. You're talking about a third of our students, maybe a half of our students that aren't making the commitment as a ninth grader to go CTC route. And I don't know that our system can support as many kids as we need to put through there to meet the economic and manufacturing demands. And at the same time, we have a lot of programs of dual enrollment and AP and honors and enrichment courses that really serve and are designed around the kids going to four-year college degree programs. So I feel like we have robust programs for those two pipelines, but there's a gap there to pull back some of the kids that are going to four-year career programs. Only 60% of them are graduating from college in 6 years. Like, that data is out there. We're sending 60% there, and only 2/3 of them are even finishing their bachelor's degree. So they're coming back to these skilled trades. They're the kids joining at age 28 that you referenced that are backtracking, and they overeducated or they overshot and they have debt and they're going back to these jobs that we're speaking of. But we need to pull students from that career pathway that are racking up the debt and don't need to. And we need to pull kids that are going the unskilled route, and they're going into unskilled trades and they don't need to shoot for Dollar General and minimum wage. We need that middle ground there. So I guess just for recommendations or requests, it's a lot of what you've already heard. I think less restrictions. I've looked at creating a CTE program specifically for manufacturing readiness, and the process that we would have to go through to get that approved through PDE and through the state, and the personnel that I would need, the man hours I would need, and the funding I would need aren't there. None of those options are there. So practical, flexible ways that with our current resources, we can take a program designed by LMMC that's perfect for high school seniors or recent graduates and get kids during their junior and senior year to go through that, especially their senior year to go through that. Instead of sitting for dual enrollment credits for 2 class periods during their senior year, they could sit and pick up their manufacturing readiness certificate and walk out with OSHA certification, experience in workforce mathematics that they need, with a reminder about the soft skills and the employability skills and the attendance we're trying to teach them. So the curriculum pieces are there. The structure for high schools is there, but bringing those two pathways together to allow our students to access those is an area that I think you could be a huge asset, is an area that I think the K-12 school system needs to pay better attention to. But a lot of it's created. We just need to bring those together and get rid of some of the barriers and the red tape that prevents us from making this happen. I'm pretty sure that was more than 5 minutes. I'm sorry, Len. Thank you very much.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Dr. McCormick. Director Rich.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on this critical need to strengthen Pennsylvania's workforce development. My perspective is shaped by my unique dual leadership role serving as the superintendent of the Laurel School District and the administrative director of the Lawrence County Career and Technical Center. Representative Rowe, relative to your lightning round question, I'd like you to come back to me because I'm also the president of the Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce. And hey guys, just for kicks, I'm the treasurer of the Lawrence County Republican Committee. So, in Lawrence County, we do more than just teach trades. We create approximately 135 college and career-ready citizens for Lawrence County. Our mission is to transform students into skilled professionals who drive the Commonwealth's growth. In addition, over the last 13 years, I've been at LCCTC since 2013, and I'm retiring this year. We have grown from a student population of 350 to a robust 425. I also want to keep in mind that at the same time, the Laurel School District has lost, like Lawrence County Schools, has lost about 10% of its population during that period of time. We have more students from less of a pool of students. The growth at Lawrence County Career and Technical Center is not only numeric, but it's also in terms of a greater percentage of the students from the total population. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess I'm in the minority. I'm going to say the word is out about career and technical education. Across your districts, if you've gone to your CTCs, have you heard the word wait list? So I think the future is bright for career and technical education. The seats we have now are filled. We need more seats. Lawrence County's economic landscape is heavily defined by industries that demand high-level technical expertise. Our labor market is currently anchored by the following. Over 13% countywide is manufacturing. We support manufacturing through our machine tool technology program, our electrical occupations program, and our welding program. Over 21% of Lawrence County is involved in healthcare and in social services. That's a dominant field requiring influx of certified medical professionals. We help that program by having a health assistant program at LCCTC. We also focus on high-growth occupations. We have programs that support welders and electricians. Again, we are expecting these top priority programs to grow with a projected 10 to 23% between now and 2030, which is right around the corner. The skills gap in Lawrence County is not a theory, it's a daily reality for our local employers, as you heard from Anna. Our role at LCCTC is to bridge that gap by aligning our 13 vocational programs directly with these high-demand sectors. At LCCTC, we believe a high school diploma is but a starting point. An industry-recognized credential is a license to work. We hold our students to national standards such as the NOCTI, such as the NIMS. We also offer, for example, in welding, we would have AWS. At the health assistant, you can graduate with a certified nurse aid program. Keep in mind also that Lawrence County has a growing population that is poor. At the Lawrence County Career and Technical Center, we feed everybody breakfast and lunch. We fall under the community eligibility provision. So these students who earn a certified nurse aide can leave school and be gainfully employed right away, just like their welders, just like their electricians, just like their carpenters. Also at LCCTC, we are proud to say that approximately 1/3 of our students, so over 30 students a year, are participating in either part-time or full-time employment through the cooperative education program. Here, they gain real-world accountability, technical mastery, and for the employer, they get a try before you buy in investing in these students. Policy recommendations. Let me make a few. First of all, investment in equipment parity, and this is what I mean. What if I told you as legislators you could help fix a problem and not spend one more dollar? I listened to several questions from Representative Brown about the Appropriations Committee, and everybody comes with a handout, and they want a second handout over last year's handout without revenues to support the expenditures. If they were CFOs in business, they'd be belly up. Do you realize that the way you fund the competitive equipment grant within your budget creates winners and losers across Pennsylvania? Let me explain. You also have a program called the Supplemental Equipment Grant, and I'm going to start there as an example. So the Supplemental Equipment Grant, all 88 CTCs, as well as Brandon, who has a vocational agriculture program, Laura has a vocational agriculture program, so recognized, approved programs in high school, can write grants for supplemental equipment. We then submit them to the Bureau of Career and Technical Education. And if there's a mistake, let's say I forget to upload an OAC minute or an OAC minutes need more detail. It gets sent back for corrections, I upload the corrections, and once I have a compliant grant, depending upon how many people applied, and depending upon the amount you ask for, you get a portion of that grant. For example, we wrote for $300,000. We got $127,000. I'll take it. Now let's talk about the competitive equipment grant. Last year, 75 CTCs wrote a competitive equipment grant. 55 were awarded. Since I didn't get an award, I'm going to assume that my grant was maybe the 56th best grant in the state of Pennsylvania. When I asked about some deficiencies in the grant, they were identified. Okay, if we do a process for the supplemental equipment grant, we do the same process for our Perkins grant. If we are allowed to submit grants for review and then revise and then submit a compliant grant, why are we creating a system of winners and losers? My recommendation for policy is the following. Look at the monies you award for supplemental equipment. I'm not asking for more. Look at the monies you allot for the competitive equipment grant. Create a process for the following: grant proposal, grant alignment, industrial recognized certification as a result of the grant, a financial expenditure report, a performance report. Things we do all the time in career and tech ed. But if I write a compliant grant, I would like a piece of the pie. Lastly, I think we can do some things, not necessarily with age relative to the cooperative education program, but what about incentives? What if we had subsidies where for every secondary student currently enrolled in a high school, that the Elwood Group, you're going to sponsor 25% of their salary up to X number of dollars an hour, up to X number of dollars per student, whatever. I know you have those nice legal writing departments that could work that all out. And then lastly, certification costs. Right now at LCCTC, again, our kids are poor. Some of them are PO. They can't afford the OR. We pay, you like that, you can use it. We pay for the certification, or we have an activity account pay for the certification. In conclusion, educators in Lawrence County need to create graduates who are ready for college and or career and can perform in the local economy. We're proud of the fact that Lawrence County Career and Technical Center, we're part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Well said, Director Rich. I'm going to go first with my question. I'll be brief. You hit the nail on the head with waiting lists. Both CTCs in my district went to see them both for Career and Tech Ed Month. Both of them said we've got waiting lists, obviously for the skilled trades. Sometimes that waiting list is double the class size. So when we're talking about the bottleneck here, is it space, is it seats, is it teachers? Do we need more brick and mortar CTCs? Do we need bigger classrooms? Do we need more teachers? What's the magic wand solution in 25 words or less?
D, all of the above.
Fair enough. I'll take it. Representative Kale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. McCormick, could you repeat something? You said that right now, 60% of your students are going to college, but the demand in the market is upside down. It's 60% for skilled labor and 30% you said are going to skilled labor. Is that correct?
In rough generalities, yes. I would say it was just over 60% of our kids were continuing their education after high school, which would incorporate some 2-year technical degree programs and 4-year programs. I believe the national averages were in the high 50s the last time I looked, but I'd have to update and look at that research.
I don't know that. I was looking for your written testimony. I'm assuming it's in there?
It was really late, so when they printed your packet, it probably wasn't there.
Okay, I'd like to
but
get
I can
that.
give you a copy.
Yeah, I would like that, and I know that this is not your intention.
Yeah.
And what I'm about to go through isn't your position on it, but I want to share a frustration that I have had in Harrisburg over the course of my 7 years in it right now. You know, I often tell people the two strongest forces in Harrisburg are status and quo. It's very difficult to get things changed. It's how we've been doing things. And right now we have an education model with higher education that is lost in the 1980s, maybe the 1990s, but nowhere beyond that. Look at this. The last budget year, we funded higher education, colleges, not community colleges, colleges, $1.3 billion. $1.3 billion. Okay, well, we can talk about whether that's sound policy or not, but what we can't deny is our priorities are so out of whack with what the market needs. You know why? Because we gave CTCs $144 million. So higher education colleges, that's meeting 30% of the demand in the market right now, is getting $1.3 billion. CTCs right now are getting $144 billion. It seems to me that those numbers are almost upside down. They're almost upside down. And we keep doing this year after year after year. Mr. Rich, I would like to ask you, and you talked about those equipment grants, right? That's not a part of the $144 million. That's a $20 million for the equipment grant program. And this is last year's budget. I'd like to ask you, you know, if you got about, you know, a lot more money. I'm not a mathematician. That's why I went to law school. I couldn't work with my hands and I couldn't do math. But if we spent $1.3 billion on CTCs instead of $144 billion, what type of growth would you see within your space?
So for example, there's definite demand for expanded programming. But right now, in order to make it cost effective, I need to be able to show perhaps something that would resemble a business plan, that I'm just not going to dilute the population that we have, that I'm going to bring more in. If there is more sustainable funding, and keep something in mind, this isn't directly to your question, but I want you to keep in mind about the vocational subsidy. When you increase the vocational subsidy, where does that money go? Are you aware of that? The school. So if we don't spend all of our money, it just becomes a subsidy for the home district. I don't get to keep those money. So even though, regardless of the amount of money, like for example, let's say we want to do an upgrade to HVAC, new program. Well, that's going to be a $500,000 startup cost, assuming I have the space, which I don't. So now we're going to talk construction cost. All right, and then I'm going to have to bring a teacher in, and then we're going to have to supply them with materials. So even if we have the demand from employers for particular programming, we need to make it cost affordable relative to our budget constraints. And again, I believe if the subsidies went to the CTC, then it wouldn't become a windfall per se for the sending schools.
Yeah, and we could work on how that's all done. I'm just reflecting upon, we always talk in Harrisburg that budgeting is nothing more than priorities, right?
Yes.
And if you listen to the rhetoric of elected officials, the governor included, the governor talks a lot about these jobs, and then he puts forward a budget, and he ends up signing a budget that has those numbers. $1.3 billion roughly for the Apache schools and non-preferreds is what we call. It's kind of getting into the weeds of higher education funding. And $144 billion to CTCs, I would say that's reflective of priorities that don't meet the needs of Pennsylvania's market. And it's just frustrating when you hear one thing rhetorically, and then at the end of the day, you see nonsense like this because people don't have the will to actually push back against how things have been. Just a frustration that Dr. McCormick's testimony kind of just lit for me, and I just wanted to get that out there. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Mostello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, I have to say I'm very jealous of you with the FFA programs you have here in Lawrence County. I've been trying to bring it back. We have one in Butler County at Montauk, and I would love to see that program expand, especially in Butler County. But and with that, Mr. Rich, you said you had 135 students go through your program. Is that correct?
So our average class sizes, we have grades 10, 11, and 12. Our average class size is about 135.
How many of them stay in the area still after graduation?
So I don't have that exit data relative to how many stay. I will say, though, that from being at Laurel and being at the CTC, the skilled trades kids, the hourly wage kids have more of an opportunity and more of a likelihood to stay. Relative to some other things about which you've alluded to, Lawrence County, as far as a professional community, bachelor's community, we need that workforce as well, but we need those opportunities. And then we need to have housing and other things to support those types of opportunities. That's a whole rabbit hole. By the way, Brian Dean, Montauk FFA teacher, is a Laurel graduate, just saying.
And as far as that goes, I know, and I'm going to brag for another second with my VOTEC in Butler, they have a partnership, I believe it's with the Carpenters Union, whereas students that graduate can further their education, further their training, because they will get out of my VOTEC with the certification. But obviously, it's not to the certification of the standards of some of the building trades that are necessary to go out there. So what sort of partnerships do you have here in Lawrence County or at the VOTEC school with the building trades? Because, I mean, we're talking about
So,
housing.
for example, our construction trades teacher is a member of the Union Hall. So we have a great relationship with the Carpenters Union. Our welders, our welding students annually go down and visit the steam fitters. You may be unaware, but we could throw a rock to the IBEW training facility from here. So all of our CTE programming does have an opportunity to align themselves with those union opportunities. However, I must say that that we have good non-union work with the Elwood Group and other places that also are very beneficial to our students. So our partnerships, union and non-union, are extensive.
That's good. That's good. I'm sorry, I'm getting the look. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I have one final question of my own before I kick it to Representative Brown. Used to work a lot with, I used to own a couple of gyms, worked a lot with high school athletes, and one of them remarked to me that when he came into high school his freshman year, his teacher asked him, well, where are you going to college? And like that was just the culture as well. Here's what the financial aid packet you'll have to fill out, here's this, and we'll handle that paperwork for you and all that kind of stuff. And there wasn't even, there's other options for you. It was just, where's college? Now that's just one of my 6 school districts, and it's anecdotal. But for you guys from the high school and school district perspective, is that just a localized issue, or is that something that you see generally where, like you said, 60% of people are going out to compete for 30% of the jobs? Is that a cultural issue generally in the high school education system where that's the expectation, and then, oh, if you don't succeed, well, there's this fallback option for you? And is that something that we can change, or is that a local cultural change? Is that a school board directed change? Is that an administration directed change to tell kids, you know, if you're in your freshman year of high school, first of all, if you don't know what you want to do when you grow up, that's okay. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. You'll figure it out. But how do we change that when a freshman in high school is being told, you have to figure out where you're going to college right now, versus saying, here are all of the options for you to have a family-sustaining, fulfilling career that keeps you at home, keeps you near your friends, family, and neighbors. How do we change that culture on the local level?
So I think first, let me say that as far as the previous group referenced influencers, the number one influencer is the parent. So what is the open-mindedness of a parent to something other? We went from college for a few to college for all, and now we're still at college for many. I really believe that counselors, at least in our region in Lawrence County, are open to other alternatives. However, if you look at the 8 school districts in Lawrence County and you look at their post-secondary placement, those placements are reflective of that community's culture. So the message needs to start early in the elementary school, opportunities in the elementary school. And I've told these employers, go to a football game and rent a booth. You know, you need to be at the elementary open house. You need to be at the high school open house. You need to be at the football game. You need to be at the basketball game. It needs to be okay to be a welder, and mom and dad need to say it's okay.
I would say yes and no. I think it's a changing rhetoric. I think it's an improving rhetoric. I don't think it's where it needs to be. And maybe you summed up what I hoped to convey here better than I did of, and I don't mean this against CTCs at all. I'm a huge proponent of CTCs, but even our budget and our conversations are, so if we capacitate high capacity CTCs, if we send as many kids in Pennsylvania to a CTC as we possibly could, I'm curious what percentage that would be. I know the school districts couldn't afford it. I'm about tapped out sending 17% of my kids. It's an $800,000 tab on a $21 million budget. So for 41 of my students out of 1,000, that's a pretty high spend. I think the ticket, I think the area that we're missing and that we're untapping is we have that path. It's a good path, but we're only getting 15% of our kids in there. In Lawrence County, it ranges from 8% to 23%. The lowest school in the county sends 8% of the kids. The highest school in the county sends 23%. That's 15%. You have kids going to college, and we need kids going to college. It is programs that are being suggested that captures those kids that are still in their home district that are playing football, that they don't need to think of college as the only other option. They may not be committing to a CTC. They're still in their home districts. They're in traditional schools. They need a pathway that isn't what college are you going to. Not you should have went to CTC 3 years ago. There is training levels that are less than 3 years of high school to graduate as a welder, but more than a high school diploma. It requires more than a high school diploma and less than a bachelor's degree. But you can do that in a year or two. You can do that through internship programs. You can do that through things that cheaply fit within a K-12 structure for traditional students.
In addition to what he said before, Brandon, don't forget too, we can't throw a rock to it, but we could drive to Newcastle School of Trades, less than 5 minutes from here, and we go a little bit north to LTI, Laurel Technical Institute. So there are other post-secondary opportunities that if you weren't ready for the trades at 15, maybe you're ready at 18 or 21.
And I think, one of the things is exposing students to hands-on activities at the younger ages, the robotics. Show them that this is cool. That's why our partnership, our students are doing the what's so cool about manufacturing. Having our fourth graders, manipulate drones, having them build raised garden beds, hands-on activities that show, actually creating something is a powerful, first step. And I think that we need to put kids to work in a good way. Let them make mistakes. Let them, do the building. At a younger age, to show that manufacturing is not only, it could be a great career, but it's also fulfilling, building something. And I think doing that, getting them out of those four walls is important. And I also think, I agree with Anna that we ask a lot of the manufacturers that, hey, show our kids, but I do think we have to show our kids, allow for the opportunities within the school itself. That we know, I think sometimes that, our teachers need training on this. What to say to kids to, not shut down an option for them in fourth grade or fifth grade, or not saying, hey, what college are you going to in ninth grade? But really, as school districts, having the teachers, be aware of all of these opportunities for the students. So.
Thank you very much. I'm going to recognize Representative Marla Brown for any questions and some closing remarks.
Thank you. So I think what we've heard today is a lot of opportunity, which is very exciting. When I ran for office, one of my biggest concerns was being able to keep our kids here, not just for us as parents, but for grandparents. And we've always been a strong manufacturing community, and I think we're going to continue to be. I know of just a handful of manufacturers that are trying to move into Lawrence County. They simply need warehouse space, and I know, that the economic development arm is working with them to do that. But Principal Hathaway, you made a comment about the programs that you have and that your goal is to reduce youth out migration, and I love that. I guess my final question is more comprehensive for all of you, and that would be, what are you hearing from young people that leave our community, don't want to stay here, with all the opportunities that we have in front of them? Why are they leaving?
So I have 3 children between, my wife's going to be mad because I'm not going to say their exact ages, but I know my oldest is 29. I know my youngest is like, let's see, 01, 25. Okay, there we go. But anyway, long story made short, and my middle one just got married, so where are they going to put down roots? Well, she wanted to put down roots in Columbus, loved the amenities, et cetera, didn't necessarily like the real estate prices. You know, we have cost of living here that's advantageous in Western Pennsylvania, but community to community lacks amenities. Also, we need, just a little bit on the chamber side for me, Lawrence County is in desperate need of housing. 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, brick to grade, 2,500 square feet. There's 2 areas in his district right now. The only thing we need, which I live in, the only thing we need is a developer who can. But if it's going to cost, what is the square now, 200 a square maybe? For 2,500 square feet, that's $500,000, right, in cost?
Yep.
Well, what are you going to sell that for when you can do the same costs in Cranberry and get 20% more? So, really, and listening to my kids, and they say I don't listen, probably just some I do and some I don't, but I really think it comes down to community structure and amenities. This generation, and I don't like the term, but they use it, want this work-life balance. You know, we were growing up, what do you mean work-life? Get to work. You know, so in any event, they're looking for the work-life balance. They're looking to have their homes. They want their cake and eat it too. They want their amenities. You know, there's a nice little park in our community that's growing. There's shops in our community that's growing. If we don't have those residual things, and then it also becomes a chicken and an egg. Which one do you need first? You know, place
Right.
to live or
Right.
things to do.
Right.
That's why they're leaving.
Dr. McCormick, what do you think?
I think you're spot on. I don't have this data in front of me. I like to poll our alumni, and that sounds like a great future question to talk to them about. But I would say that if they're graduating with a skilled trades degree, there's a much higher likelihood that they're going to stay in our region than with a 4-year bachelor's degree. I think it's
agree.
a little bit more of a crapshoot of whether they're going to have a job that matches with their degree locally, and most of them, or a large percentage of them, are not going to be able to stay local.
Yep. Principal Hathaway?
You know, I think I think there's a communication gap with parents as well. You know, I'll use Elwood for instance again. I got to sit in on 2 internships and meet with their human resources of what, you know, a job in manufacturing can actually provide. And I was like, I almost want to be like, can you tell the parents this as well, to a 17 and 18-year-old, so that the parents hear it? Because I also think the parents, in a lot of ways, that, hey, there's no opportunity here. You know, because maybe there's that, you know, kind of what, you know, Representative Kale was talking about, that old mentality of, oh, no, the jobs have gone. You know, we know it, you know it, but there's that also, no, parents, listen, there are great opportunities in manufacturing as well. There's 401ks. There's, you know, paying for farthering education that you can get. You know, the companies in our region will pay for the kids' schooling while they're working.
Yep.
And I don't think parents know that.
Family sustaining wages, I heard you say.
Yeah.
And I've heard Anna say that's all you need to hear.
Well, we so appreciate what you're doing, and we appreciate all your testimonies today. Thank you to everyone who attended. You know, the fact of the matter is we must create clear pathways for the next generation to enter the skilled trades. And encouraging participation from women, veterans, and underrepresented groups will strengthen the workforce. Investing in people today will help secure long-term economic strength, and not just here, but across the entire Commonwealth. So thank you again. Chairman?
Thank you, Representative Brown, for hosting us today. I want to thank all of our testifiers from both panels for their time, for Elwood Steel for hosting us for a fantastic tour earlier today. What we've heard is very clear. The demand for skilled workers is here. The interest from students is here, but the system isn't keeping up. And it's a problem we have to solve. We have a responsibility to do just that. So whether it's expanding access to CTE programs, it's removing barriers to entry, it's addressing the overregulation, aligning training with workforce needs, these are practical steps that we can take to better connect the next generation of Pennsylvanians with opportunity. Because as Representative Brown just said, when we get this right, we're not just filling jobs, we're strengthening our economy, we're supporting our local communities, we're making Pennsylvania a more affordable place to live, work, and call home. So I want to thank again our hosts for our testifiers for being here today. I want to thank the Crane Room for hosting us both last night and today. It's been a fantastic time with all of you. As a reminder, we will be continuing the Policy Committee's agenda in Mercer County next Friday, March 27th, for a hearing on strengthening rural Pennsylvania, hosted by our good friend here, Representative Park Wentling. Until then, this hearing is adjourned. Thank you.